Good evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Sean Yao.
The big stories tonight, after all the swipes, insults, and fighting words, President Bongbong Marcos now wants to take another shot at a more peaceful relationship with Vice President Sara Duterte and her family. The chief executive says he's willing to patch things up with the clan.
Now, the vice president has yet to respond to her former Uniteam running mate's wish to make peace. Her mind is on her upcoming impeachment, which she says should be a bloodbath. But a critic and the palace were quick to shut down Sara's provocative talk.
And later on, we will be speaking to DPWH Secretary Manny Bonoan about plans for EDSA's rehabilitation. He will also be addressing issues like bridges that need immediate repair and a flood control program that should be in place as the rainy season nears.
Gusto niyo bang makipagkasundo pa sa mga Duterte?
Oo! Ayoko ng gulo. Gusto ko makasundo sa lahat ng tao. Mas maganda, marami na akong kaaway. Hindi ko kailangan ng kaaway. Kailangan ko kaibigan.
After all that's said and done, is there still a chance the Marcoses and Dutertes will reconcile? President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. thinks so. On the first episode of his podcast, the president said he would rather work together with political opponents, including the Dutertes, than, quote, prolong division that distracts from governance. The chief executive also said he values stability and friendship over conflict.
Gusto niyo bang makipagkasundo pa sa mga Duterte?
Oo! Ayoko ng gulo. Gusto ko makasundo sa lahat ng tao. Mas maganda, marami na akong kaaway. Hindi ko kailangan ng kaaway. Kailangan ko kaibigan.
President Marcos added he does not need to see eye to eye with critics and allies alike. If there's disagreement over policy matters, he believes this should not prevent dialogue or cooperation.
Lagi nga akong bukas sa ganyan. I'm always open to any approach na alika magtulungan tayo. Diba? Kahit hindi tayo magkasundo sa polisiya, hindi tayo magkasundo. Gawin nyo yung trabaho pero wag na tayong nanggugulo. Wag na natin, tanggalin natin yung gulo.
Finally, the president also vowed not to meddle in the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte.
Pabayaan natin sila, may proseso yan. Pabayaan natin ang proseso. Ako, basta ang nasa isip ko, tapos ng eleksyon, balik sa trabaho. Gawin na natin lahat with the new lessons learned.
But it seems Vice President Sara Duterte is still on the warpath, but not towards her former Uniteam partner. Over the weekend in Davao City, Duterte called the moves to impeach her a way to keep her out of the political picture. Duterte has made peace with the fact that it could possibly lead to her perpetual ban from public office or her continued government service in case of an acquittal. Whatever the decision is or the verdict is, Sara says she wants her impeachment trial to be a bloodbath because for her, all these alleged political persecution boils down to one thing.
It's not about ICC, it's not about the impeachment, it's not about confidential funds, it's about the 2028 elections. The impeachment is a glorified disqualification case against me. I truly want a trial because I want a bloodbath talaga.
Reactions were swift following Duterte's bloodbath talk. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro reiterated that President Marcos will have nothing to do with the impeachment trial. She also believes the VP's recent statement is not literal.
Medyo may pagkabayolente ang tugon ng ating Vice Presidente pero we hope that it is just a figure of speech.
For incoming House Prosecutor Laila De Lima, Duterte's remarks reek of rhetoric nonsense, arrogance, and violence. In a statement, De Lima says, quote, in an impeachment trial, the only one on trial is the person impeached, so there can be no bloodbath. The new party list representative adds there is no room for theatrics in an impeachment process.
She's trying to court sympathy dahil mapalapit na nga yung impeachment trial sa constitutional process because of impeachment na dapat wala itong puwang para sa kaguluhan, para sa drama or para sa theatrics. So ito ay seryosong usapin na susundin ang due process, susundin ang rule of law, at susundin ang mga prinsipyo na napakahalaga na nandyan sa ating saligang batas.
As we know by now, central to the Vice President's impeachment trial are both houses of Congress, where rumors of leadership shakeups are still rife. Allies of the current House Speaker are confident with their numbers, while over at the Senate, there is no show of hands or support yet for the sitting president. Enriquez with this report.
Will the 20th Congress retain its current leadership? At the lower house, it looks like Speaker Martin Romualdez still has the numbers to fortify his hold on the country's fourth highest post. As one senior lawmaker puts it, the president's cousin still has supermajority support. But this does not mean Romualdez's speakership won't be challenged. Vice President Sara Duterte is already urging her brother, Davao City 1st District Representative Paulo Duterte, to throw his hat into the ring.
Sinabihan ko si Congressman Pulong, sabi ko sa kanya, baka gusto mo lumaban ng speaker. Hindi man siya sumagot. Hindi siya sumagot. Iniisip din niya siguro yung chances niya na manalo. Well, sinabi ko sa kanya, kung hindi ka manalo ng speaker, then kunin mo yung minority. But wala pa siyang sagot.
But for House Deputy Speaker J.J. Suarez, the issue on who will be House Speaker is already a settled issue. He says Romualdez enjoys the backing of at least 240 lawmakers, more than two-thirds of the 315 elected congressmen. A manifesto from Congressman even sealed the support, but the rumors are not letting up. Aside from Congressman Duterte, another name being dangled as possible challenger to the Speaker is Navota's Congressman and Alianza campaign manager Toby Chanco. In an interview with One News and One PH, Chanco said some congressmen have already reached out to him expressing their support. If so, there's still 10 weeks for any contender for the speakership to sway the votes. Meantime, at the upper chamber, the Senate presidency could also change hands. One contender is returning Senator Tito Soto, who already had experience handling the upper chamber's top post.
If my colleagues will offer me the position, I will gladly accept.
Even second-termer Senator Amy Marquez's name has also been mentioned as possible replacement of SP Cheese Escudero.
Di ko pa naiisip yung ganun.
Another returning senator, Ping Lacson, has already met with several colleagues. Lacson is said to be pushing for an independent Senate once the politics on naming the next Senate president is over.
Kailangan independent tayo, kailangan transparent tayo, at kailangan competent tayo.
For News 5, I'm Marian Enriquez. We are One News.
Interesting times in Philippine politics. Let's discuss or dissect all these developments further with Professor Aris Arugay, Chairperson of UP's Political Science Department. Good evening, Prof, and welcome to the Big Story. One is calling for a bloodbath while the other is extending a hand of reconciliation. What do we make of this?
Well, it reveals where the positions of our top two leaders are coming from, where they're coming from. But I do think the extension of reconciliation by the president is really interesting because it might mean that, at least on his end, that he really wants to do good on, let's remember, the campaign promise and the premise of which they both ran in 2022, and that's unity. Unfortunately, that's a basic campaign promise that has become unfulfilled. However, reconciliation cannot be one way, and therefore it's also quite interesting that the Vice President has an opposite view and seems to be has not changed her stance that this war between Marcos and Duterte should continue even if the midterm elections are already over.
Mm-hmm. How can the president prove that he's sincere, how can this happen?
Well, sincerity on his part might mean that there might be pronouncements that would be less reactionary, because it seems like Vice President Sara Duterte has no intention of not doubling down on the narrative that she's being persecuted, not only by Marcos's allies, but Marcos himself. So I think on the part of Marcos Jr., is to pursue lines of mutual interest or cooperation. But to tell you the truth, says at the moment, it seems very unlikely because the base itself is at the moment is on the mode that there's really this polarization, this division in the country that will prevail, even if we've had elections.
Does this show weakness on the part of the president? It may be sobering for him. The results of the elections make him practically a lame duck president.
Right. Well, what we've heard from the president is at least a very proactive measure. We just don't know the details of how he's gonna be able to accomplish it. But I think President Marcos has realized or is starting to realize that he needs to do something for his last remaining years in office. And anything that he has done before, any approach or any kind of strategy that he has implemented has not really bear fruit, did not really result to concrete outcomes because his popularity numbers are down. On the other hand, the Duterte base has mobilized and delivered for some of the endorsed candidates of former President Duterte and Vice President Sara Duterte.
What do you make of his podcast? He, podcast number 1 on the 3rd year of your of office looks strange.
Indeed, especially for let's remember when he campaigned for the presidency, he actually had a very active, if I'm not mistaken, a YouTube channel. But this is very consistent with the very curated, very polished approach of Marcos Jr. It was recorded live, but it's not actually live. Compare it with the ambush interviews and off-the-cuff remarks, the rhetorical strategy of Vice President Duterte. As someone who has been monitoring the unraveling of this alliance, seems like they're treading two different communication or rhetorical strategies at the moment.
Professor Aris, this all comes in the context of last week. We heard Alianza campaign manager Toby Tiangco going on so many media interviews, basically saying the same thing. Basically, nilalaglag nila yung impeachment. And then today, nagyari to nga, episode 1. I think we have to talk about this pronouncement of extending an olive branch within the context of ang dami ring gumugulong. And Congressman Tiangco has already said a lot of things. Do you think this is all kind of like a coordinated kind of messaging? Do you think they're changing their messaging finally?
Right. From the point of view of political strategy, any attempt to have plausible deniability by the executive on the impeachment process, I think it's very smart because just in case if the impeachment trial's outcome is an acquittal, then the Marcos Jr. Presidency and administration will say, oh, we have nothing to do with that. Wala kaming kinalaman dyan kasi sinabi na namin na ayaw namin yan. But on the other hand, if the outcome results in conviction, then it's something that would, any political strategist would say would benefit the current administration given the very combative nature of the relationship between our top two leaders.
Well, Professor, as early as now, we're already hearing rumors of possible leadership shakeups for the 20th Congress. Let's start with the upper chamber. Do you think Senate President Cheese Escudero will still enjoy majority support in the next Congress?
Right. Normally, we hear this buzz about Senate leadership once there'll be a new Congress, right? Because they'll still reconvene in early June. And we'll spend a bit more time before the new Congress opens sometime in July. But we're hearing, as soon as the senators were proclaimed, we're already hearing buzz about leadership changes. And therefore, it seems like the probability of a Senate leadership is looming, because let's remember, the outcome of the Senate elections did not really favor the current administration majority in the Senate. So you have some changes in the numbers. The entry of Senator Kiko Pangilinan, Senator Bam Aquino, the entry of, depending on who's counting, 4 to 5 Duterte-endorsed candidates. That's more than half of the 12 seats that were up for grabs in last week's election. So it's very plausible that the administration majority of the past 3 years in the Senate will not hold.
What about in the lower house? Last week, we also heard of an event in Shangri-La Fort where there was supposedly an event of Lakas CMD, and a lot of the congressmen pledged support to the House Speaker, Martin Romualdez. Do you think he's going to be able to hold, given that he does still have a majority?
Right. It's trickier in the House because the Speaker is a direct first cousin of the President, and therefore is an extension of the Marcos dynasty in politics, if you include the Romualdezes. And historically, the Speaker, with very few exceptions, the Speaker, the House of Representatives, I mean, has always been controlled by the incumbent administration compared to the Senate. But I do think the idea that there could be a challenge to Speaker Romualdez might stem in the fact that there might be allies of the president, or maybe people close to him politically, who might want to say that maybe in your last 3 years you might want there might be a different direction, a different approach, and different strategy on things, because it seems like in the first half that that the administration had been severely challenged. Many of its campaign promises remain to be not so fulfilled, and its popularity as president and as an administration it's been declining. So any kind of leadership challenge in the House might signal that the administration might want a different approach in policymaking and in its relationship with the legislature.
But in the end, the president will have influence over whoever will sit there, right?
In the House, yes, definitely. In the Senate, there seems to be historically a bit more relative autonomy between the way the senators decide, and this is why it's kind of indicative that a lot of them are emphasizing the term "we must be an independent Senate,"
Okay.
and that we might read a little bit more on if a majority of the senators are expressing the sentiment. But in the House, historically and institutionally, the president holds a lot of sway.
So in the Senate, who do you think it could be? We've only been hearing Tito Soto, former Senate president. He's expressed pretty much the same thing, that he is willing, if he has the numbers. Fearless forecast, Prof.
Right. Well, if you're, let's say if you're a sitting senator, and especially if you've won the election, let's talk about the Duterte-endorsed candidates. Your option is to either declare yourself in the minority, and most likely you'll join the ranks of the current minority, Senator Risa Ontiveros, who likely be joined by Senator Bam Aquino and Senator Pangilinan. The implication of that is that you might lose your committee chairmanship. So let's remember that the Senate's dynamic is quite different, because yes, there's a looming impeachment trial of the vice president, but after that, if you're a sitting senator, you have to think about, what about my committee chairmanships? How am I able to really influence policymaking and lawmaking if being in the minority will mean I lose this chairmanship? So I think the search will be for a candidate or for a senator that will be seen as a consensus between the Marcos side and even perhaps the Duterte side. And Senator Soto is a viable candidate because he served as Senate President during the Duterte administration, and at the same time, he's a member of the Alianza Sling.
Okay.
Professor, just one more question for me. Well, you did mention the looming impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte. Break down the numbers for us. And how do you think these senator judges will be voting? Will they be voting according to their political biases, or will they be voting impartially, objectively? Because we do know this is a sui generis proceeding, right? So it's quite different. But at the same time, they will also be judged by the public on how they decide leading up to 2028. Walk us through that, Professor.
Right, definitely. We've had 2 impeachment trials in our history. One was aborted. The second one was able to complete, although the official in trial was not a president or a vice president, but a Supreme Court Chief Justice. So when people say, and almost everyone say it's a political process, it has something to do with the fact that the members of the jury, the judges, are senators. I mean, in other countries that have impeachment processes, the conviction or acquittal of the impeached official lies in a court, an actual court. In South Korea, it was a constitutional court composed of, if I'm not mistaken, 9 judges. So this is not really a judicial process. But let's also remember that as a impeachment trial, the rules of evidence will be different. So you're correct. While a lot of these senators have loyalties, I mean, in Philippine politics, there are no permanent allies or friends, only permanent interests. And a lot of these senators will think, how will I be judged? Not only the way I vote, but the way I conduct myself as a senator judge. And what about my political ambitions and political interest? Will being overly loyal to the vice president or to the government, what cost will I have to bear, and are those costs something that could compromise my ambitions or my career? So a lot of these senators are going to think about that beyond the evidence. But we must remember, we only have their alliances or perhaps their loyalties in mind. The process will happen, and there'll be evidence presented, and this will all be televised. They will be under a microscope, everyone, including perhaps the vice president herself, if the strategy is to make her testify. And finally, that the vice president promised that the impeachment will be the opportunity for her to present her defense. So it's quite interesting. She framed it as a bloodbath when it's supposed to be the promise that she made is that she will present her innocence in this trial.
Mm-hmm. Okay, finally, Prof, in our earlier exchange, you mentioned about the difference in the way President Marcos and VP Sara communicate or present themselves to the public. VP Sara has obviously been more subdued, but still uses very sharp words. Who's winning the communication? I hate to call it war.
Showdown.
Well, showdown. Yeah, okay. Because before you answer, Prof, because, you know, Attorney Claire Castro is speaking for the president when she, you know, answers all of VP Sara or the Duterte allies' comments.
Right. So yeah, I mean, of course, the president has some advantage given that he has the entire Philippine government apparatus to carry out some of the communication strategies and measures. But we must also understand that communication it's the recipients of these messages, of this rhetoric, that at the end will judge whether they're effective or not. And what we're seeing is that if you notice, Sara Duterte's rhetorical strategy doesn't really fall far from Rodrigo Duterte's rhetorical strategy. So in a way, whatever gains or whatever assessment we've had of the effectiveness of the Duterte rhetorical strategy of the former president, it seems like Sara Duterte is able to mimic that, and that enables not only the mobilization of the base, but a mobilization of different actors or influencers, bloggers on social media. So we must remember that in this day of social media, it's not only there are intermediaries of these communication strategies. And not only is there a communication war between these two officials, but also a war between their foot soldiers, the influencers.
Correct. Okay, so
So one last question, Prof, very quickly. In the House, babalikan ko lang yung sinabi mo kanina, there are names that are cropping up. There's Albi Benitez of Bacolod, who's, I think, running as an independent. There's also, of course, Toby Tiangco, who is the Alianza campaign manager. He's also known as a loyal congressman, but he is also sort of family by marriage to the president. So who do you think it'll be?
Right. It's quite early to tell. I think at the moment, while we have heard news that it seemed like a sealed deal and that likely the speaker will remain, it's still a few weeks before Congress reconvenes on early June, and if the new Congress. So I wouldn't totally count the possibility that there could still be nung nagkagapangan sa eleksyon, baka nagkakagapangan din sa House at the moment. And therefore, it's so interesting that in Philippine politics at the moment, the most interesting politics does not happen before or during elections, but happens after.
depends kung sinong may magandang promise sa mga congressman. Diba?
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, University of the Philippines Political Science Department Chairperson, Professor Aris Arugay.
All right, we're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, we speak with Public Works Chief Manuel Bonoan as we get updates on the EDSA rehabilitation and the repair of the historic San Juanico Bridge in Eastern Visayas. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. We've been told so many times already, brace for heavy traffic on EDSA as it undergoes a major repair. But when is the rehab finally happening? The DPWH says repairs could start next week, so expect more congestion in several areas, including Guadalupe Bridge. Agencies are preparing too. The MMDA is urging the Supreme Court to lift the TRO on the no-contact apprehension policy. For its part, the LTO is coordinating with the MMDA for the use of CCTV cameras along EDSA to monitor any road accidents or disruptions. Transport authorities are also tightening training requirements for new driver's license applicants to further ensure road safety. And starting next month, all trucks and buses will also undergo automated motor vehicle inspection for roadworthiness. In short, everything seems all set for the EDSA rehab, but still no definite date yet on when construction will begin.
Uunahin namin siya isakto dito sa may Pasay to after Guadalupe. Yung section na yan muna para in time for the ASEAN meeting. Yun ang gagawin namin northbound and southbound. There are segments actually na pwede din namin umpisahan na southbound mula Caloocan. And today, we are going to finalize actually yung traffic management scheme together with MMDA and Department of Transportation because of their busway.
Still on infrastructure, the Visayas region is facing a crisis over the country's longest bridge. The iconic San Juanico Bridge has structural damage and needs immediate retrofitting. The DPWH says sections of the bridge's approaches are deteriorating and need urgent repair that could cost a fortune. The agency sees local contractors handling the immediate retrofitting works on the bridge with a proposed budget of over 50 million pesos. Now, for permanent repairs, the DPWH is preparing a separate plan costing around 900 million pesos, which will take more time to implement. For now, the province of Samar is under a state of emergency. The Office of Civil Defense has likewise raised a blue alert to trigger heightened preparedness and the immediate release of emergency funds. San Juanico Bridge is now off limits to vehicles weighing more than 3 tons, and those using the 2.16-kilometer bridge should also follow on-site traffic directions, proceed one at a time, and stay on the center lane.
Yung main structure, ito yung truss bridge structures na intact pa rin naman, pero yung approaches from Tacloban and dito sa Samar side, may mga 2 o 3 segments na kailangan talaga kumpunihin kaagad kasi medyo deteriorated na yung mga nasa ibaba na approach structures na yan. So that is the reason why rinekomenda nila na i-limit muna yung load na dadaan sa San Juanico Bridge.
Sa ngayon po ay nagkaroon po ng blue alert. Ibig sabihin nasa heightened alert ang mga concerned agencies. Nagkaroon na rin po ng multi-task force at magkakaroon din po ng public assistance desk on both sides doon sa bridge. At may 24-hour patrol unit na rin po for safety monitoring. Magkakaroon din po ng weighing station para madetermina yung mga vehicle na pwedeng dumaan.
Now let's learn more about the structural issues of the San Juanico Bridge. And joining us over the phone is DPWH Secretary Manny Bonoan. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, Jess, and to all our listeners. Good evening po sa ating lahat.
Before we go to the San Juanico Bridge, and just because we want to brace ourselves for the EDSA rehabilitation, do you have a date set for the start of it?
We completed actually yung discussions namin with the MMDA and with regard to the implementation of the rehabilitation of it, particularly now.
Secretary, sorry to interrupt, but you're coming across a bit choppy. I'm wondering lang if you could move a little, baka po maayos yung connection.
Yes po. Okay.
Okay,
Now better.
Po.
Better.
Okay.
May you recap what you just said po, sir?
Well, we just completed our meeting with Metro Manila Development Authority and the Department of Transportation to finalize actually the traffic management scheme before we start the rehabilitation of EDSA. And we have come up with some agreement, particularly in the particularly in sections where limited yung lanes. No? Because along EDSA there are still just 4 lanes available for motorists actually. So we have agreed actually that we will have another round to discuss and finalize everything, and so that that will be ready for dissemination to the motorists along EDSA for some time.
Okay. So 2 more rounds of meetings.
One more round.
One more round. Where do you see the challenge po? Ano yung nahihirapan kayo?
The challenge would be actually on sections where there are only 4 lanes. 4 lanes, because we have to occupy at least, I think, about 2 lanes during construction, including that we still have to continue to provide exclusive lane for the buses.
Okay. To add to that, Secretary Bonoan, kasama na rin po ba sa plano yung pagsara ng Guadalupe Bridge? Because I understand the target for the retrofitting of the Guadalupe Bridge is scheduled for October this year. Tuloy po ba yun?
Not really na isasara yung Guadalupe Bridge actually this year. And we don't intend actually to close Guadalupe Bridge actually. It will be the 2 outer structures that will have to be rehabilitated. And this year, I think we will not touch the main structure for the time being because of the ASEAN meeting. What we will do in Guadalupe Bridge is just to construct muna yung little bridges alongside for north direction and southbound direction also.
Just to clarify, yan po yung dalawang alternate bridges habang nadadaanan ng mga kotse habang nakasara yung main bridge.
Yes, eventually. This year wala kaming gagalawin muna.
Okay.
Ang gagawin lang muna namin is actually to construct yung detour bridges.
Okay.
We're losing you again, Secretary.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, there.
Yes.
Sorry, say that again. You will construct a new bridge?
We will construct detour bridges. Detour bridges alongside the existing Guadalupe Bridge.
Those are going to be temporary.
This year. Temporary, yes. Temporary detour bridges this year.
Okay.
And only then will you, once these are constructed or finished, only then will you close the Guadalupe Bridge for repair?
We will not close it completely, actually. It's just going to be the outer structures that will be closed and replaced with new structure.
All right.
Well, Secretary, earlier today, you also announced the initiative of the DPWH to use plastic bottle waste as an additive doon sa road asphalt. Ano? Saan po ba sisimulan yan, Secretary? When can we expect the beginning of that initiative?
Ito yung pinag-usapan nga namin kanina that, I think as soon as we are able to disseminate all the information necessary for our motorists using EDSA, then I think by sometime in late June siguro, we might be able to start already the rehabilitation work along EDSA. Muna dito sa may Pasay to Shaw Boulevard segment in time for the ASEAN meeting in early 2026.
Did I hear you right, Secretary? Medyo nag-choppy po ulit. June ang target nyo sa start ng first...
June?
late June?
Late June nga ba?
Late June siguro. But as I said, we are just going to have another meeting actually and finalize everything for the dissemination to on the traffic management scheme that will be adopted to our motoring public.
Okay. We hope you don't mind na makulit kami because, this is also, the public has been waiting for this and, they have to plan their
Absolutely.
travels around the metropolis. But can we leave the EDSA now and go to the San Juanico Bridge? Ano po ang gagawin ng DPWH dito?
For the time being, kasi, I think, let me just backtrack a little bit. Kasi San Juanico Bridge is more than 50 years old. No? It was opened in 1973, and it is really due for major rehabilitation or retrofitting. And this is the reason why we have planned, actually, and we have planned to construct another bridge nearby the existing San Juanico Bridge. And this will be financed by official development assistance from the Japanese government. It's now in the process of detailed engineering design, and the plan is actually once this new bridge will be constructed, then that will be the time that we would undertake major rehabilitation work on the existing San Juanico Bridge. However, because of the findings from the preliminary assessment on the existing bridge, may nakitang mga defects already on some of the segments on the approaches from Tacloban and in the summer side as well. So it was urgently recommended to limit the loads that to pass by for the time being, because we have to undertake some immediate retrofitting work on the segments that were found to be deteriorated.
That will be really, really difficult for residents of Samar because that's the only bridge that connects these two major island groups. Pero Sec, para lang hindi natin maulit yung nagyari dun sa Isabela, I know we had the report na. Ano po ba yung problema talaga na nakita nyo? Can you be more specific? And I know there's a 3-ton weight limit, dapat sa gitna lang dumaan. What is wrong with the San Juanico Bridge right now? Ano po yung findings?
There are 3 segments that were found to be na-weakened yung structure because yung mga steel plates underneath has naging corroded, and some of the bolts have been loosened, and it is clearly dangerous to let over yung mga loaded vehicles more than 3 tons at this point in time, as recommended by the consulting firm that we have engaged actually to do the preliminary assessment.
May budget po ba tayo, Sec, for the San Juanico repairs? Do we have budget?
Yes, I think we have fortunately we have some initial budget, but we are coordinating with NDRRMC if we can avail of some of the calamity funds available from NDRRMC, because I think the deterioration of some of these segments has been also affected from the calamities that have visited the region years ago.
Magkano po yung estimate nung consultant niyo for the repairs of San Juanico?
Yung 3 bridges, they were the 3 segments that they were talking about, to make it a total rehabilitation would need, I think, about 800 million. But as we are preparing also for the new bridge, actually that will be constructed anyway, I said we probably will just have to do the retrofitting work and so that we can probably increase the allowable load limit at this point in time.
Because the
Particularly,
new bridge, Secretary, will take how many years to build?
another 3 to 4 years actually.
Well, Secretary, aside from San Juanico Bridge, the DPWH also conducted inspections and assessments of mga 1,500 na tulay, ano? Ano po ba yung iba pang
Yes,
issue
po.
na nahanap doon, Secretary? At ano pang mga tulay ang nasa priority list ninyo?
Well, I think many of these bridges also were constructed many years ago, and I think they are really due for retrofitting or rehabilitation, and some of them needs widening because of the traffic that they are catering for. So ito yung isa sa mga priority areas that we are looking at in our infrastructure development program, particularly along the main national highways. So
Do you
this
have a
should be
number?
given priority.
Do you have a number?
I think almost about close to 70% that we have investigated actually would require retrofitting, widening, and even reconstruction for that matter.
Wow.
Quick update lang bago tayo mapunta sa flood control, Secretary. Ano na yung resolution dun sa bridge na nag-collapse sa Isabela? Has everyone involved figured out how much, who's going to do it?
Yes, we're just completing actually yung investigation report that we have actually conducted. And very soon, I think we will now be balak namin dito is actually to call upon all involved personalities from DPWH at that time when it was being constructed, and of course yung consulting firms that were involved in the design, and even the contractor that have implemented project.
All right.
Next time na lang flood
We
control.
wanted to ask about the flood control, Secretary, but that means we'll have to invite you here once again in the program. Maraming
Yes po,
salamat
anytime,
sa pagiging suki namin. DPWH Secretary Manny Bonoan.
And we have to pause now for another quick break. But when we return, winning party lists, except for 2, were proclaimed earlier today. Why the proclamations of Duterte Youth and BH party lists were postponed when the big story returns? Keep it here on One News.
The big story is back with winning groups in the party list race being proclaimed today. Well, all but 2. In this report, Mon Gualvez tells us why the proclamation of 2 groups had to be deferred.
Nominees, their families, and supporters filled the Manila Hotel Tent City to the brim for the proclamation of party list groups. Of over 150 party lists, COMELEC certified, only 54 groups were guaranteed a place in 63 seats allotted in the House of Representatives for the 20th Congress.
Sa party list po, ang inabot po na number of votes for the party list ay 41,950,292. Dito po binase ang Banat versus Comelec, dito po binase ang 2% threshold, dito po binase ang additional seat at dito po binase ang seat na entitled kahit maaaring hindi nakakuha ng 2%. Ang sabi ng Supreme Court sa Banat versus Comelec, lahat ng seats ay dapat punuan.
Akbayan, Duterte Youth and Tingog secured 3 seats, while 4Ps, ACT CIS and Ako Bicol Party List got 2 seats for getting more or less 1 million votes. Groups ranked 7 to 54th get 1 seat each. However, before the proclamation proper, Comelec read the resolution that 2 party list groups would not be proclaimed due to pending petitions. They are the Duterte Youth and BH or Bagong Henerasyon Party List.
I think po mas unfair kung halimbawa later na proklama ka na, hindi pa nagsisimula yung assumption to office, biglang nagkaroon ng decision, tanggal ka. Mas masakit po yun dahil nagkataasan na ng kamay o tumaas na sa entablado, tapos biglang maaanal pala. Mas maganda po malinis.
In response, Duterte Youth said they had answered all issues against them since 2019, which is why they were allowed to hold their posts in 2019 and 2022. The group said it is elevating the matter to the Supreme Court, threatening Comelec that if their assumption into office is deferred any longer, they would reveal alleged anomalies within the poll body and Congress. For its part, Bagong Henerasyon Party List said they have not received a copy of the complaint yet, but they are willing to answer any grievances against them. For now, they motion for the Comelec to urgently push through with their proclamation. Meanwhile, Comelec reminds party list organizations that failed to win in 2 consecutive polls that they will be automatically delisted. This means they might lose accreditation and will have to reapply if they're considering running again in the next elections. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
And another news, Signal has officially launched Signal Super, the first ever streaming aggregator app in the Philippines. The platform combines content from providers like HBO, Warner Brothers, Signal Play, and Pilipinas Live into one subscription and one interface. Signal Super aims to make entertainment more accessible to Filipinos through a single login on mobile devices. Chief Revenue Officer Gerard Milan says this launch marks Signal's biggest step yet into multimedia innovation. The app is now available on Google Play and the App Store, with promo prices starting at 249 pesos until May 31.
And for our big picture tonight, well, Pope Leo XIV has officially begun his pontificate following his inauguration last Sunday at St. Peter's Square. In a ceremony that blended ancient rituals, evocative symbols, and a nod to modern-day celebrity, the 69-year-old Augustinian missionary received a vestment and a ring. The pallium was presented by Cardinal Mario Zenari, which symbolizes the Good Shepherd carrying the sheep on his shoulders. And our very own Luis Antonio Cardinal Tagle presented Pope Leo with a fisherman's ring, which is now the pontiff's official seal as successor to St. Peter. Thousands attended the inauguration and all were confident that Pope Leo XIV will unite the 1.4 billion strong Catholic Church.
Wow.
He was also very emotional still during his inauguration. Like the first time he stepped out of the balcony, right? You could see Pope Leo quite teary-eyed, and for me, it shows how human he still is.
You know, it's really nice when leaders like that show their humanity. What Prof said kanina,
Authenticity.
hindi yung curated masyado.
Tsaka ang ganda nung ilaw kasi. Bumalik tayo dun sa episode 1 ng BBM Vlog
From
Podcast.
Pope
Weekly na ba
Leo.
yun? I know. Diba?
Pero communication diba?
It's
It's
really
very
important.
important.
At saka yung authenticity, yun yung habol ng mga tao ngayon. Like, walang makeup, you're already loaded.
Yeah.
Diba?
Very
Show
raw,
motion.
organic,
Yeah.
Okay, hint-hint ba yun sa Malacanang na naman? On that note, that's it for the big story on this Monday evening. It's a new week.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Do stay tuned though, because coming up next is Play-by-Play with Jot Sulit and Denise Tan. What's up, guys? What do you have for us?
Yeah, it's an exciting time right now, and especially in the NBA with the playoffs coming in full swing. But
Napuyat ba kayo kagabi? Denver versus OKC.
Nax!
Wow! Kasi ako napuyat.
Anong nangyari?
Yung game nila, 3-3.
Sorry,
guys!
Well, thank you to you
Finals,
ladies of the big story. Tonight, we've got the Oklahoma City Thunder completing the cast of the NBA Conference Finals, plus the aftermath of a controversial boxing match involving former Olympian Charlie Suarez.
And the question is, have we just seen the last of NU volleyball standout Leo Aringo in the UAP? His coach hints at what's next for the finals MVP after leading the Bulldogs to a historic 5-peat.
I'm Jot Sulit, sitting in for Andre Felix.